And it's almost going.
Yeah, Martin's in.
Two,
Hi.
one.
Hey,
Hi.
Howdy, guys. All
Howdy, howdy.
right. So we are live. Welcome to Stall Talk. I'm your host, Kendra Dixon of Stall High. Stall High is an app for horse people. So if you need help with your horse, go download the Stall High app. It's free. It's in the App Store and Google Play. I'm here with Martin Patella of Life Enthusiast. And we've got several new visitors this week on Zoom who've already signed in with Top 15 Challenge. And we have one of our interactive members as well. So Kevin, quick shout out.
howdy everybody.
That's Kevin Copeland, not to be confused with Kenneth Copeland.
No.
Yes, we have our own Kevin. So Martin, last week you dropped some bombs on us, and I've had to really marinate on that this week. You took so much pressure off of me, and therefore I'm excited to share it with the rest of the horse world. Because we tend to be really hard on ourselves when we work with our horse for months or years, and we get to the point where we have confidence in the practice pen. And so things seem to be going well, and we're like perfect at home. And we feel so good when we enter a race and we drive to the race on the weekend, and then it all falls apart. And you explained why that happens. Like there's an actual biological reason that happens. And that took so much pressure off of me. And I feel like it's going to liberate a lot of other people who are being too hard on themselves and too hard on their horses as well. Can you kind of recap what you were explaining last week? Why does it fall apart when we get to competition?
Yeah, I call it the performance brain, is when we go into the on stage or, well, I'll give you an example. For example, myself, when I'm traveling, I need to make a list before I travel, before the go day, because when I'm loading the vehicle with all of the bits and pieces that I know I have to have a list to work off of, because I kid you not, I cannot think of what I knew the day before.
Yeah,
and that happens. There's your list. Awesome. And so likewise, when I go on a show, there's a little piece of paper sitting in front of me with the important words, because I swear I cannot think of the right word. And that's because when we go, there are two modes, the fight or flight mode and the rest, repair, digest mode to the autonomic nervous system. And it's you can be in one or the other, but not both. And so when the stress goes up, all of a sudden your eye of your brain over here that gives you the chance to think about your responses goes away, and you just go into the animal brain, the back brain, the lizard brain, and all of a sudden you're just as stupid as a deer.
Yes, so many of our riders, and I've been through this as well. It felt like decades to mature through that process to where now I can think through a run and things kind of seem to happen in slow motion, and I can talk myself through it as if I'm speaking the same speed I'm talking right now. But that happens. We have a lot of riders that report, I go blank. Like I forget what it feels like to leave the alley and go to the first barrel. So that's a real thing, guys. And I want people who are watching, whether you're watching on TikTok or YouTube or one of our Facebook pages, there is a reason for this. You don't have to feel guilty or dumb blonde moments. Like it's a natural part of the learning process. It's the learning curve. And what we want to do at Stall High is just help simplify that path, expedite it when possible, when we can make the path to results quicker. That's what we're here for. But we definitely want to make it easier for the horse and the rider, and just having the knowledge so we don't blame ourselves. That makes it easier, just knowing that.
Right. And what we need is a habit. right? We go from training and visualization. I mean, we can do an act either in our minds or physically. Either way, your brain cannot tell the difference, whether you visualized it or whether you performed it.
Mhm.
And it needs to be worn in. And unfortunately, we lose it. Even somebody as experienced as Kendra, she can just lose the connection to the automated behavior. Athletes do it, right? They just learn, they do repetitions. And Dolly Parton goes on stage, she can sing that song, I don't know which, Jolene, and she can just do it anytime. You wake her up in the middle of the night, she will know the song because she has done it 10,000 times.
Mhm.
Right? But if I ask her to sing something that she's not familiar with, she'll be not so good.
Okay, so this reminds me, before I met my husband, Chad, we've been married for 25 years. But right before that, I competed for the Miss Rodeo USA pageant. And I had won 10 titles up until that point. So it took me 4 years to win anything. I was just kind of floundering around. I learned something from every pageant, but still, I didn't really know what I was doing until I had someone mentor me and take me under their wing. I think they just felt sorry for me. And they're like, kid, come over here. Don't wear this, wear that. Don't say this, say that, stand up straight. So they really coached me and that helped. But I remember having the time and really wanting to win the Miss Rodeo USA title. It meant more to me than any competition I'd entered up until that point. I wrote my speech, which those are the only two things I could win. I could win speech category and horsemanship, kind of on auto, right? Even back when I was 14 years old. But I couldn't win the titles until 4 years in. I kind of digress. But I practiced that speech so much. You could wake me up in the middle of the night and I could say it just like Dolly Parton. And it was so good. My dad and my family and I, we rehearsed it so many times. But when the moment came, right, and everything was going so well at that pageant, I just felt like I was in my groove, like I've won 10 titles. This is the biggest pageant I've ever entered. This is my moment. I get up. I'm so confident in my speaking abilities. And I went completely deer in the headlights. Like I couldn't even think of my name. And then I got spooked. So the pressure started getting worse.
Yeah.
And
you spiraled completely out of control.
I did. I couldn't even think of how to salvage that moment. And I had to excuse myself and walk out. And I was like, if speaking has been easy for me since I was 14, why did something happen then? Because I've been so confident. I think it was because it meant so much to me.
Well, you went into the stress mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe I over prepared. Is that possible?
No.
Okay.
No, it's almost like pushing the nuclear button. You just go completely off. How do I best say that? There are some tools we have that can take us out of the fight or flight. The easiest one is this. You take your tongue and you press it against the soft part of your roof of your mouth. So you have to roll it all the way back. And breathe deeply. It's a funny thing. East Indian guys, yogis, have found it, have figured it out. And there is a signal to the brain where you press that soft palate out there with your tongue that you actually are going to engage the, what's it called? Parasympathetic, rest or repair. Yeah.
So we can do this when we're sitting on our horse in the alley. And we can tell like we're freaking out, like they're about to, it typically happens when you're getting closer and they'll say in the next 5, next drag coming up, and they list the riders and you hear your name. That usually triggers anxiety. It took me a long time to outgrow that.
Anxiety is the part of the fight or flight.
So roll the tip of my tongue back like a backward C and push on the soft palate.
Yep. And the other thing is, of course, deep breathing, right? Diaphragmatic down into the belly. because when we are stressed, we start blocking the bottom part of the belly and we start breathing from up high in the chest, and then the shoulders start going up. All right, that's part of the stress reaction.
You
Right,
just
so
you hit
open,
another bullseye.
open, drop your shoulders, roll your tongue, breathe into the belly.
Okay, that you just uncovered like 50 years of barrel training that we're trying to untrain. If you look at, I'm going to go so far as to say most. So if you pull up any rodeo photographer in the world and you go to their barrel racing films and you look at their photos, a lot of people ride like this.
Yeah, stressed.
When clinics come through students come through my clinics, it's real typical that people will, like, we call it the cell phone ear. Like they'll lift an inside shoulder and they'll do this like they're
But you have both.
Yes, like that's a thing. You can see it documented through photographers' files, and it's stress, guys.
Absolutely. It is stress. Yeah, it is stress. You're in fight or flight.
Huh.
There are foods that can help. Anything chlorophyll rich, green stuff will push the parasympathetic forward. So chewing on some chlorella beads or whatever, or drinking a shot of wheatgrass juice or barley grass juice, or chewing some alfalfa tablets. Those are all useful. They are going to engage the relaxation. And the mineral magnesium will also help. You can rub that on topically.
Okay, so tell me about the chlorella beads. Is that something we can keep in the horse trailer?
Oh yeah. Those are stuff you buy in a health store. You know, go to a health food store and buy yourself a, I don't know, 8-ounce jar of chlorella. They're tiny little tablets. They're about the size of Tic Tacs.
Do you have them at lifeenthusiast.com?
I don't. I've never specialized with this wild stuff. I do have chlorella. We sell chlorella in a jar that I keep in my freezer.
Okay.
And
how do you intake it? How do you digest it?
Well, ours is you take a spoonful, throw it in a glass of, just like the one you're drinking, shake it up and drink it.
Okay. What does it taste like?
I love taste of chlorella. It's like a grass candy.
Okay.
It's green, but it's sweetish.
Okay. So years ago, I bought a fancy juicer and I got on a juicing kick, and I would make green lemonade. And it does not need sweetener. Like the ingredients sound horrible together, but when you put them together, it just works. So the lemons and the apples, it's like the right amount of zest. And I love that flavor so much because it's fresh. It's almost like your body knows it needs it.
Yep.
So we can chew on chlorella beads. We can take a shot of alfalfa, which I personally have never done.
Again, it's sold in stores as alfalfa tablets. I mean, we do at Life Enthusiast. I have products. Brand is Exsula, EXSULA, where you will find all of these green drinks. But we have been selling it as green drinks for people who are using it typically to go to bed. You know,
I was going to ask you about that this week because my sleep habits are not good, especially not lately, because we have been under a lot of pressure, deadlines, pressure, projects.
Yeah. And then so you're wound up all the way to the last hour, and then you need to turn it off somehow.
Yes.
So I have two turn it off tools. One is called the chlorella, and then we have something called Cortisol Ease, EASE. Cortisol is a herbal tincture. I'll show it to you here on the shelf.
So you were talking about this last week, about when we go into like instinct brain and we can't think.
Yeah. This is probably too bright. Yeah. Well, anyway, it's a 2-ounce bottle like this, and you just draw yourself about this much. Like when you squeeze it, it comes about like this deep in That's about 15 to 20 drops. And you can just put it under your tongue.
So how long before we run do we do that? Do we dose? And is
Oh.
it something we need to do every day, or is it just something
Only
we can?
the cortisol ease is for sleeping.
Okay, sleeping.
Because what cortisol, you see, cortisol is the hormone of stress. So if you take it away, then you're de-stressing right away,
Mhm.
which may or may not be a good thing. Well, maybe if you, damn it, if I had that bottle with me when you were just struggling with your speech,
Yes.
I would have had you back on stage in like 5 minutes with, okay, I can do this.
Do you know how many months? Like, I poured so much energy and so much time into that one pageant. It was such a monumental thing for me.
Yeah.
And to have something that I was so competent in and so confident just like slip through my fingers, I was devastated. And I was young back then. So
Yeah, and of course, you probably spent 2 years recriminations and self-abuse in your
Yes.
mind, right?
yes, and I see so many people struggling with that today. They're stalled with their horse, just repeatedly,
Yeah.
beating themselves up when, guys, here's the answer. This is one.
Well, so the cortisol ease dissolves the excess cortisol that's circulating in your body. So normally, this is normally used by people who need to study late into the night or do something, be active late into the night. But then they're just, you're 60 miles an hour top gear, and now you're supposed to shut off and go to sleep. Well, you need to cut it out somehow, and the cortisol ease will do that. It will help your liver is the organ where this thing gets taken apart. It just cuts the circulating cortisol. It's used by people with PTSD. Those
Okay.
people have abnormal reaction to normal inputs, right? Like guys who come back from the war, they hear somebody's fireworks go off or somebody's exhaust backfires, and they're down on the floor looking for where this live fire is coming from.
Mhm.
Or, like they just go into the automatic stress response.
Mhm. So
Anyway, Kevin sounded like he wanted to say, or was
Yeah.
giving something like wanted to say something, no? Okay.
Oh, yes, we do. All those
Oh.
combat vets. Yes, we do
oh,
those things.
Yeah. So anyway, specifically, the cortisol ease was developed by a veteran. Fellow's name is Elijah Free, and he was a medic out there in war, and he came home with PTSD, and he also wanted to help his fellow veterans. And then after he invented it and tested it and had it just solid proof, he took it to the VA
Mhm.
and said, okay, guys, these are my private studies. Why don't you run with it? And they said, no, we won't. We would lose the sponsorship from the pharmaceutical companies, and you're too little and they're too big, and good day.
And that's what, so you mentioned something the first week you were on Stall High about when you were younger, you trusted that a physician, that the medical field,
Yeah, that was
medical community was right, and that you should just, surely they were right. But
well, that was my belief in the basic goodness of the system. It was
Mhm.
my belief that the professional would take the client's interest as its first rule.
Mhm.
The golden rule, do unto others.
Mhm.
Well, that's not how it works. They follow the training, and their training is done by the Rockefeller and Carnegie hijacked the medical world back in the 1920s and have been running with it ever since.
Mhm.
And they have completely rejigged the entire system. So we now have the best government money can buy.
Mhm.
And
Well-
within that, we have whoever can buy the lobby, can buy the politician, who can then affect the legislative process, who then affects the regulation, and that's what we've got.
Well, there is a strong parallel that I see with the horse industry. We just trust that the most popular techniques, I mean, they've been used for decades, so surely they're the best, right? No, we disprove them every day at Stall High. And once you see, you can't not see it again. So I'm interested in learning more about how the mind overrides our muscles, like the mental part that we have missed for so long because we've been doing these repurposed, recycled drills for horse training, and we call that horse training.
Yeah.
But it's really not. There's so many products out there for the physical fitness, but we neglect the value of the mental health of our horses. We neglect our own mental health needs. Like, that's such a taboo word anyway. You say mental health, and most cowboys and cowgirls go, I'm out. I'm backing
Yeah.
out of the room.
Yeah. Well, a man is not allowed to have mental health, just the same way as man has no feelings, because feelings are dangerous.
Mm.
Just shut it off, because that just makes you weak and you're strong and blah, 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 whatever. That's the programming, right?
And we're disproving that knowledge is power. The more we learn, the more we want to know. And it's just fascinating to me to where health really is both. It is mental and physical. I was not aware that my mind was overriding my muscles. I wasn't aware that, all of those hours in the practice pen, my brain was just using the wrong part when it came time to get to the rodeo.
Well, there's physiology to it, right? So to understand, autonomic nervous system has two branches: sympathetic, parasympathetic, fight or flight, rest and repair and digest. Actually, there's fight, flight, or freeze. And the frontal is fight or flight, and the back one, the dorsal, is freeze. And you can demonstrate it on kittens. You grab them by the neck and they just go limp.
Okay.
Right?
Flight or freeze.
So it depends where it hits you. You either confront, right? Like you just go into fight mode, or you freeze. You just become completely. And that's what happens to the antelope when the lion jumps on it and bites it, and they're done. They stop fighting.
And we freeze. Like, so many people come out and, like, I'll look at my videos, in years past, and I'm like, I really thought I was kicking, but I wasn't. I was frozen.
Yeah.
I thought my hands did something, but there was a delay. Like, looking back on the review my rides, wow, I should have put my hand down 2 more inches. And the video tells all, right? The camera really does capture it.
It's
When
objective.
your lighting's good and the angle's good, you catch a lot.
Yeah.
So, Cheryl,
Okay, so to finish the physiology lesson, so we have this bit, and there is a nerve called vagus, Vagus, that runs from your brain, and it kind of meanders. That's vagabond. That's where it gets its name. And it connects to major muscles and major organs. Everything seems to be connected to it. And it delivers back and forth all this information about the regulating all of these things, like your blood pressure, your urination, your digestion, your breathing. All of that stuff is controlled by the balance between the fight or flight versus the rest and repair. And so when you're in fight or flight, your pupils dilate, your blood rushes to your major muscles, your blood pressure goes up, your digestion shuts down, you throw up in the extreme of it.
is this why people don't want to eat before they run?
Well, yeah, because they can't digest anyway. You do much better on empty stomach because you don't have anything to worry about. Like I would recommend not eating 2 hours before a major event.
Really?
Oh yeah, hungry, you'll do better.
Okay, because for the past many years, well over a decade, probably 15 years, I've made it a point to eat before competition so I don't get lightheaded.
Well, I
I'll
doubt
do like
that you get
protein
lightheaded
drink.
from lack of calories. There's plenty of calories circulating.
I wonder if it's a sugar dip, like a low
Yeah,
blood
that
sugar.
might be, sure. Well, if you want a sugar high, then that's different. Drink some fruit juice.
Okay. Something to try for sure. Okay, so
Mm.
Cheryl, are you at a place where you could talk? Does this
Yes,
change
ma'am.
anything? Are you hearing anything? Do you wish we'd known about the cortisol ease for our students last week?
Absolutely. And I wish I would have just known about the pushing the palate with my tongue.
Yeah.
That would have changed when I was like, in the alleyway, just throw my tongue up there.
Yeah,
That's easy. You don't have to run to the trailer and get drops or remember to put them in your pocket.
Exactly.
yeah. And force yourself
Exactly.
to breathe deeply, the diaphragm, into your belly.
Mhm.
So is that the same as you were telling us a couple weeks ago about putting our hand near our belly button and pushing
Yeah.
out, pushing in
Yeah.
while you're doing the palate?
Yeah, I was demonstrating that when you feel your hand rising, when it's sitting over your belly button, then you know you're breathing down into there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ronnie, are you is that USC in the cowboy hat?
This is
Have you ever
Ronnie.
Said about the soft palate?
Say that again. I couldn't hear it good.
Have you ever heard that about pushing your tongue on the
No.
soft palate?
No, ma'am.
How many students have we tried to coach through their freak out moment in the alley or in the box over the years, and we didn't know that?
Mine went back to breathing. That was what I was taught years
Yeah.
ago, was you're not breathing, you're holding your breath.
Yes.
And I went, oh, really? He said, yeah. Because when we get in any kind of a tense situation,
Yeah,
it's a
you lock.
natural response to go,
Yep.
And do
You lock
this.
up.
and you lock up. Exactly. And you've got about 20 or 30 seconds. It's about what it amounted to before you can't remember the first barrel, or you can't remember catching the calf or not catching him. Basically, is what it got into.
Mhm.
I got into back there, and I got into a little deal, and I was not catching cattle, and it just wasn't. And a friend of mine, we roped every day. I'd have about 150 head or 200 head of roping calves there all the time because I was buying them and selling them and leasing them. So we roped every day, had 3 or 4 horses, and they come over. We roped every day, and I got into a little deal. They talk about the 10,000 hour deal, and I understand that repetition and all this stuff. You get into a place to where it's like the guy says, I want to practice so long that I can't make I can't make a mistake. I just can't make a mistake. Well,
Correct.
That's a good thought until it's kind of like, to me, a pattern horse is really good until the pattern breaks, until
Yeah,
something
I-
happens outside that realm, outside that pattern.
Mhm.
Then what do? Well, you make a mistake, you do something happens. And he said, you're holding your breath. And I went, what are you talking about? He said, you're holding your breath. And he explains this to me and goes through the system and the whole deal. And I thought, well, why hadn't you told me this before? Well, you didn't need to because you were going all right. And to a degree, what happens to it sometimes to me was, and my wife would do this too, is when you tie the first calf or you tie 1 or 2, 3, 4 down in a row, you're kind of breathing hard. So your body's breathing hard because you've exercised and brought your heart rate up and your breath comes in, and the oxygen content, and you're okay. But whenever something comes out of the ordinary and happens to you, like you do make a mistake and it's not what you usually do, then the first thing you start to do is hold your breath, but you also go to fighting your head. That's when you start fighting your head. It's when you're holding your breath. and your whole body gets stiff. It's like this little girl was out here the other day, and she was not getting along very good with her horse. And I said, "Are you doing this?" We talked about clenching your teeth.
Mhm.
She said, "Yeah." And I said, "When you clench your teeth, you hold your breath. And when you hold your breath, your shoulders get stiff and your body gets stiff all the way from your head to your feet." James talked about that. And that's a fact. I had to get her to go break that loose, break it loose, break that jaw loose. I break it loose and start to breathe. Then everything started to change. She started to relax. Her shoulders started to drop down. It's like you're talking about, relaxed her body. Then everything started to change and she started to focus.
Okay,
But
I have a question.
but boy, that deal with the top of your pack here,
I've never heard that.
that never heard that, but that
Never
would
heard
be
that.
something that would really be, it's so simple.
Mhm.
You breathing, and in, I don't care whether you've done this 1,000 times, 100,000 times, or whatever it is. Whenever you put your money up, whoever we are, you can go there. That's like, well, he does really good in exhibitions, but when I go to enter, he falls apart. And I said, no, the horse don't fall apart, you fall apart. Because when you put your money up, everybody tries harder. And you will kick it up a gear, and you will kick it up a gear that neither you or your horse has been to.
Yes. Oh, this is fire.
Then all of a sudden you thrash. This, I learned this from Barry Burke.
Okay.
Tying roping and tying calves. He said, when you practice, go slow. Just tie the calf, rope and tie the calf at the house. Because if you run wide open at home and you're practicing as fast as you can at home, when you get to the rodeo and you put your money up, everybody's adrenaline goes up.
Mhm.
Everybody's adrenaline goes up.
Mhm.
If you have practiced running wide open at home and your adrenaline goes up, then you speed jam. That's when you start, you can't flank and tie the calf. You running through yourself and everything falls apart. Just make it correct at home. Every step, make it correct at home. Now, that does not mean always walk, trot. You have to, this is an Ed Wright deal.
Okay, hang on, Ronnie. I'm gonna stop you there because I don't want to lose this. I want to circle back to holding the breath. So this is a question for both of you. So Ronnie Clampett, he's our coach on Fridays. If you're like having light bulb moments right now and you want to learn from Ronnie, download the Stall High app or go to stallhighnetwork.com so that you can listen to him every Friday. So Martin, last night our coach, Matt Reeves, he is an 8-time National Finals Rodeo qualifier. He is a rodeo veteran. He's on the board of the PRCA. He knows rodeo inside and out. He mentioned something about a horse holding its breath.
Yes, sir.
And he mentioned about how he believes, this is his personal experience and his personal opinion, that when horses get so amped up like that and they don't breathe and riders don't clue into that and don't help them de-escalate, they don't help them relax, he believes that that's when we see a lot of bleeders.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that connected to the lungs? Could that be part of the reason why we see so many bleeders in the horse racing industry?
Tell me what a bleeder is.
They bleed from their lungs and it comes out of their nose. And once they bleed, it's a really hard deal. My dad was an old thoroughbred racehorse guy. So he told me, time. If you think those blood vessels have healed, double your turnout time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people run on Lasix and a lot of Lasix, and there are risks with that as well. So could that, what are your thoughts on a horse holding its breath, Martin?
Yeah, I don't know enough about that, so I'll just probably have to defer, but I would say physiologically,
Yes.
the horse is perfectly capable of becoming stressed just as a human.
Yep.
So
When they're bleeding, they're basically what they're doing is they're drowning.
okay,
It's like a human drowning.
So instead of getting to that extreme point of, increasing the odds of a bleeder, right? I'm
Oh.
curious if this cortisol ease, if we can dose a horse with that, can we
Why
prevent
not?
bleeding episodes?
Why not?
I
Kendra,
do
can
not
I
have an
chime in?
experience with it. And of course, a horse being 10 times the size of a person, we take 10 drops for a human. So I guess we would have to hit 100 drops to the horse, which is a teaspoon.
That's,
Under
that's,
the Cheryl, you were trying to say
Can I
something?
chime in there? Yeah.
Yes.
So along with horses holding their breath, it goes in with their hearts syncing up to ours. If we're holding our breath, horse is going to hold its breath because they're connected to us and what we do.
They mirror us.
And then as far as bleeding as well, right, they mirror us. And as far as bleeding, one thing that people overlook is just conditioning. If you
Mhm.
long trot that horse and you have that horse built up and those capillaries can handle the stress of it, they're less likely to breathe. So most bleeders aren't in good enough shape to be running.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, and if we could just, like, here's two main things that we're learning today. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Cheryl. Take responsibility as a rider. Okay, understand that the horse is mirroring us. So rather than letting it become an extreme physical problem, what type of preventative care can we take? Preventative steps. Push your tongue to the soft palate. Make sure you're not holding your breath. Make sure you're not having deer in the headlights moment, because that's going to transfer to your horse. When we hold our breaths, Cheryl just pointed out the obvious. Our horse is a mirror, guys.
Right.
They're going to imitate what we do. Their heartbeat syncs with ours. Don't think that they're not picking up on your anxiety. They are. So if we can take responsibility, we're the ones who need the cortisol ease. The horse may never need it if we take care of our own heart rate and
Yes,
our
ma'am.
own. How many bleeders can we prevent just from this one episode of Stall Talk? Just with this one piece of information and knowledge. Thank you, Martin. This is fascinating, guys. We have an opportunity to change how it's always been. I'm not going to say done.
It has.
It's done wrong in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. And I'm not saying everything out there is wrong, but there are some discrepancies, and that's how we want to bridge the gap at Stall High.
I want to throw in one more item, and it's magnesium. Magnesium is the element that's parasympathizing,
Yes.
meaning that it flips the scale. Calcium makes things short and tense. Magnesium makes things open and lengthy.
Yes, sir.
Lengthy, so every time you move a muscle, bicep, to shorten bicep, calcium signals that, but it has to signal magnesium to lengthen the tricep, the opposing muscle. Anyway, we do have magnesium in a topical form. When you drink it, it also has an effect on the digestive system. It will clean you right out. So that's not the most fun. But if you use it topically, we have this magnesium that you can rub on. So when I use it, or most athletes, they rub it on their belly and on their legs.
Okay.
And they perform. We had done that. There was a talk, I think just last week, with the athletic coach. I'm not remembering his name. Do you recall?
Yes, Justin Smith.
Justin. Yeah. And so he was saying, I am known as the gazelle, right?
Huh?
Right.
Uh-huh.
And when you have enough magnesium on board, you are running, not tense. This happens to the horse. You can be also sitting, not tense, when you have enough magnesium on board.
Okay. So
That's-
I'm getting
especially
ready.
people, I'm sorry, especially people who get nervous would do themselves a favor to do a rub down with magnesium before they go into this performance moment.
Okay.
That's a good
So
idea.
here's three things I wrote down from you today. Cortisol ease, the
Mhm.
magnesium topical, and then your greens products are Exula. We can find that at
That's the brand, yeah. Mhm.
life-enthusiast.com. Okay, we're going to be sharing those links. You can find information. If you need help connecting with Martin, let us know. We'll definitely put you in touch. Email us All High, you can reach us on any of our social media platforms. So these are 3 things that can help us. We spend so much time and so much energy and so much money in rodeo on our horses. It's not just rodeo, it's all disciplines. And when we want a performance horse, there's millions of dollars going into that. In fact, the equine industry, most people don't know this, contributes 122 billion annually to the US economy.
Right.
That's so far beyond what I even thought. But we're so busy in the barn or on a tractor or in the saddle that we're not paying attention to we're not doing the math. So these are 3 things that can help us really protect our investment and compete better, decrease our odds of having that blackout moment.
You probably would be surprised at how many of those top end performers understand some of this, because here's what I have found with the people that I've dealt with, the ones that I've worked for.
Mhm.
When you're world champion several times, been to the finals 13 times, all of that, Triple Crown winner, cutters, racehorse, whatever it is, they will always look for what can make my horse, what can I do to make it better? My performance too. All of those men and women, I'm going to women too, because there is good horse women out there that are men. They all had someone that they talked to that may not be in the horse industry, let's say, because this is an athletic event.
Mhm.
It's just like my son run track and cross country in high school and in college both. And that when you get into, like, I don't know, Texas and Oklahoma, 5A, 6A, that's nearly like the pros, because
Yes.
that's how they work it. And then when you go to a college on a scholarship, that's another level there too. And that's what he was used to. He was used to going to those levels because those are the people that we dealt with. And that's where Kim was, that's where we were.
Mhm.
They have a completely different thought train than everybody else.
Yes.
They do. And they always, every one of them had somebody that they visited with. And it surprised me how many of them, I mean, they may go to a hypnotist. They'll try anything in the world to take that stress off. It's like Junior, his deal to take stress off was he would joke and laugh and cut up and play around and all that to just kind of break the stress off. Some people would go off by themselves and just, they meditate or however that works.
Mhm.
Kim would get off by herself and run. She would just run down the road leading her horse.
You said that. So she's on the ground jogging before,
She's
like,
running.
to say 10
she's
before
running
they
down the
call her
road.
name. Yeah.
She's running down the road up to the end to where she is breathing hard. That forced her to breathe. That was her deal. That's how she set everything up. See, all of this, and when you learn these things, all of these things have a system that you go through that sets you up for the next step, the next step, the next step. And your horse understands that too. She would she'd lead him down the road, cinch him up, lead him down the road, trotting just down through there, turn around and run back until she was kind of breathing kind of hard, and then pull him up when she knew how many ahead she needed to cinch him up. She could pull him up one more hole on that cinch, and he knew it was on. Lead him around a circle or two, just in case, don't get bucked off because the cinch pinches. Lead him around a circle or two and go sit in a corner.
Yes.
What I really liked about the pro rodeos is they would have a place for the barrel racers that the crowd couldn't run in, get in front of you, because we've run over a few people in our life. At the amateur rodeos, they'd just be walking back and forth, and the dog goes through there and the kids and all this stuff and just run over them. Because some of those horses, when you start them, they're gone.
That's right.
There's not any of this, oh, I'm gonna stop. No.
There's
they're
no
gone.
turning it off.
There's
That's
no
right.
turning it off.
Well-
And she would do that, and she set all this up, and that old horse knew every step to it. And when she pulled her hat down, she'd have a stampede string, and she
Mhm.
pulled her hat down, and she pushed that string up like this, and reached down and got a hold of both bridle reins, and when he knew it was on.
Yeah.
But she had taught herself through the process because of what I had learned from my friend from Arden about breathing, the breathing process. And all of these guys that you visit with, and I still talk. But when I have a problem, the man I go to visit with is Bill Riddle. He's an old friend of mine. He's a cutter. I don't go to a barrel racer because a run and turn and stop and turn, it's all the same in the barrel horses as it is in the cutters. The cow horse deal has a completely different, has basically the same thing, but the process is a little different, and you can explain it a little better. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But that's I
Well,
learned from him.
I'm going to start landing this plane, Ronnie. So let me talk to
Okay.
some of our guests who came in. I'm glad you're here because this has been, once again, valuable wisdom and insight. So for those of you who came in through Top 15 Challenge, so you've signed up at top15challenge.com. You're now in that Top 15 Challenge group in the Stall High app. What'd you think about today? Because I just posted this Zoom link about 30 minutes before start time. So anybody, Amanda, Adona, Tracy, anybody want to speak up, ask Martin a question while we have him here today? Was this helpful for you?
It was me. It was.
Me too.
Yeah.
How about you guys
Yeah.
listening on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube? Go ahead. Is that Tracy?
Trying to come through, but it's just crickets.
And,
Get started on stuff.
simple helpful tips. I know my horse.
Popped up on my phone, so it was just instant today.
So you were on TikTok last week, right?
Yes, I was.
Yeah. I remember reading your comments on TikTok last week. So I'm excited that you have joined Top 15 Challenge. Let me talk a little bit about that really quick. So if you're watching on a different platform and you don't know about Top 15 Challenge yet, there is a free entry point, but you have to enter right now. Top15challenge.com. You will get in for free. You will have a chance to win this brand new saddle. I don't know if you guys can see that right there. So you get the brand new saddle. This is sponsored by my friend, Stephanie Cross at Tennessee Real Properties. So she specializes in horse properties in Tennessee. So if you're wanting to move out of the city, definitely talk to Stephanie Cross. You have a chance to win the saddle. Now you may not need a 14-inch barrel saddle. That's okay. The manufacturer of this saddle says that you can trade it in for a saddle that you do need, that does fit you, whatever your event might be. And it comes from horsetackworld.com. We're going to be giving away a lot of other cool prizes. So when you make the next step and you invest in the Cactus Backstage Pass, that is sponsored by Cactus Saddlery. They're giving away a Relentless Extreme gel pad every day of the finals.
Wow.
Only for the Cactus VIP members. Right. Wow, Ronnie, that's a $300 saddle pad.
Mhm.
They're giving away 10 of them. You sign up at top15challenge.com. We have seen so many awesome success stories this year just by changing the saddle pad and how that helps riders feel more confident. Because if you're riding in a real pretty saddle pad that's too thin, your saddle's wobbling and rocking even just a fraction of an inch, it's going to cause you to feel insecure. You're going to doubt yourself as a rider, and it's not you. You probably ride a lot better than you think you do, but you may just have a saddle pad that's too thin. So think about that. We're giving away a lanyard bit. We've got these cool new lights we just got in. So they're ultra light, like super, super light. You hardly know they're on your face. And this is a limited edition trucker cap. There's only 10 red ones made. There's the Stall High logo. These are only for Top 15 Challenge VIP members. So go to top15challenge.com, get signed up. We're going live every day of the national finals with interviews like we did today. We're going to be interviewing top 15 athletes. We're going to ask them, how do you deal with the mental pressure? How do you stay physically fit? What do you do with pain? Matt talked about that last night. One year he went in extreme pain. And by round 5, he was thinking, good Lord, when is this going to end? Well, there's other times he said, when you're on a roll and you're on a hot streak and you're doing well at the finals, you never want it to end. You want there to be 30 rounds. So he really helps explain that. We're going to ask them, how do they finance their trip to the NFR? A lot of you watching right now want to know, how do you finance your dream of making it to the finals? Find out at top15challenge.com. I keep saying that because I really want people to get signed up now while the entries are open and while they're free. Another thing we're going to ask our athletes is, how much does faith factor in? Faith is a very vague word. I want practical steps. I want to know, what do they do? What do they say that they can measure, that they know makes a difference? We want it to get tangible results for our viewers so that you know it works. So please consider signing up. I would recommend doing that sooner rather than later, like right now, top15challenge.com. Martin, I do hope you're going to be on the books with us as well as a speaker, because this is just these 3 things you mentioned: cortisol ease, the topical magnesium to help us relax without us having to run to the bathroom, and drinking greens. I forgot to ask you, so the Exila products, is it best to stay on that on a regular basis, or are we okay if we just load the day of the event?
Chlorophyll kicks in within 20 to 30 minutes after you take it. So
Okay.
you take it every time you feel like being more relaxed. How many times a day is that?
I just relax. I want to turn my brain off when it's time to go to bed and not still be rolling at midnight or 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
About 30 today.
Yeah.
Martin Patella, thank you so much for being here once again. And thanks for sponsoring Stall Talk. So
Yeah,
guys,
we-
if you want to check out Martin's products, go
You
to
bet.
live-enthusiast.com. We will be sharing the links. You can reach out to us as well, info@stallhigh.com, and we will connect you with these awesome products. And we're changing the horse world over here at Stall High. So if you're brand new, this is the first time you've ever heard about Stall High or Stall Talk, download the Stall High app. I'm Kendra Dixon, and I'll see you next in the Top 15 Challenge. Thanks, everybody.
Wow.
This was great. Thank you, Martin.
My pleasure.
All right. See you next week.